Hey there, friends. How many of you needed permission from the government to tell you whether or not you could carry a firearm to church? Yeah, that's what I thought. But first, go check out my friends Midwest Gunworks at midwestgunworks.com. Look, these guys offer a full slate of gunsmithing as well as key merchandise, firearms, accessories, ammunition. There's tons of stuff over there. Again, midwestgunworks.com. While you're there, check out the Parts Finder. Parts Finder is going to pop up on your main page when you go there. You can select your make, you can select your model. It's actually pretty cool. It's a neat little function of their website that allows you to really drill down and find exactly what you're looking for. Check them out, midwestgunworks.com, midwestgunworks.com. A three-judge panel in the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit has vacated the New York law banning the carry of firearms in church, citing the First Amendment. You guys will remember after Bruin was passed, everybody freaked out on the far left. They did not like the very fact that the actual law of the land, the Constitution, was being used to protect our constitutional rights, something that, especially in New York, they had trampled on for so many years. One of the things that they tried to do immediately after Bruin was passed was pass a series of laws restricting where New Yorkers could carry firearms, because before that, essentially, they had banned it pretty much almost everywhere. You had to be a friend, do favors, or receive a favor in order to be able to carry a firearm. A plethora of things you had to go through in order to own or carry one in the state of New York. Bruin pretty much put that all out the window and made New York scramble at the last minute. How are we going to maintain the dictatorship that we have in this state? Well, they put out a bunch of laws essentially sidestepping all of Bruin, and they got massive blowback right off the bat. I mean, immediately they got massive blowback saying that all these new laws also violated Bruin. They couldn't do it. So New York, in a knee-jerk reaction, made some last-minute changes to their unconstitutional bill, stating that businesses in some cases could allow people to carry firearms on their property, but you'll remember they said you have to have a sign saying that firearms are welcome on your property. In other words, instead of putting a sign out saying you can't carry firearms on this property, you had to have a sign if you were going to allow firearms to be carried on your property, like a retail store or something like that. Unconstitutional on its face also there too. But nevertheless, they still did not allow churches, synagogues, places of worship to allow firearms on the property, even though they were going to allow retail establishments to make that decision on their own. They were still going to outlaw that according to places of worship. This three-judge panel used the change in that law to find several plaintiffs no longer had standing, leaving one religious plaintiff, Pastor Spencer, and his church. The panel found the ban of possession of firearms in church violated Pastor Spencer and his congregation's First Amendment rights to the free exercise of religion. The panel stated, but more broadly, the CCIA is not neutral because it allows the owners of many forms of private property, including many types of retail businesses open to the public, to decide for themselves whether to allow firearms on the premises while denying the same autonomy to places of worship. By adopting a law that applies differently as to places of worship than the most other privately owned businesses and properties, the CCIA is, on its face, neither neutral nor generally applicable. So the state of New York, in its infinite wisdom, again carrying the water of the federal government as well, this is how the federal government thinks, the same way. They're thinking that we can just do it and it's never going to matter. In fact, there's not many repercussions for these states and even the federal government to do whatever they want in infringing upon gun laws anyway. We talk about that all the time. But nevertheless, the court system is a process, and it looks like this process is slowly but surely tearing away at this grip that these unconstitutional governors and the president and our federal government has on the Second Amendment. They have been violating the Second Amendment time after time after time, and we talk about how the court system is a process and has to take place. Now, my biggest argument in cases like this is just like what New York did after Bruin. There's no teeth in when these people are breaking a law, or these, like New York, for instance. When Bruin comes out, they decide to pass a whole slew of new laws to now prohibit people to carry in a different set of words. In other words, they put a new bill out, a new law out that now says, okay, we know that Bruin upset our apple cart now, but we're going to put it all back together and you still can't carry. there's never any repercussions. Yes, we do have the court system like what we're talking about here, and it's a beautiful thing. I love to see it. It sets precedent. It's something that needs to be done as far as stepping stones, moving to that next step. But when people violate that next step, it seems like nothing is ever done. In other words, in this case, okay, so churches in New York can now suddenly carry guns. Great, beautiful, whatever. And I think this one actually might only apply to Spencer and his congregation, by the way. I'll check on that, but I think it only applies to him. I don't think it's for the whole state. But I mean, that's a step in the process to get there for the whole state. But nevertheless, I wonder if Spencer and his congregation are now, according to this ruling, allowed to carry firearms in their church. Does the county, does the state, does somebody else pass some new little sweet, cushy law next week that says, okay, well, we understand your reason now for being able to carry. Since we told you couldn't, then you found out that we were being unconstitutional. So this is our new way with new wording. There's a lot of new words in here. So now we have a new law with new words saying the same thing. So guess what? You still can't carry. The crazy thing is, if those people in that church carry, they get hauled off to jail. So there are repercussions when honest law-abiding people are doing the constitutional thing like carrying a gun. They still get their rights violated and get hauled off to jail. But whenever these people, like the state of New York, are shown to be wrong and proven to be wrong in a court of law, it never seems that there's any repercussions. And that's the one thing that bothers me. Yes, I agree and I understand that it's a process, right? Let the court system take place. I get that and I support that. Wholeheartedly, I support that. My problem is these people have to understand when we've had enough. Because if politicians are never going to hold other people accountable for infringing upon our constitutional rights, then why should we follow any laws? In other words, if the lawmakers don't have to follow the law and the lawmakers don't ever have to suffer when they break the law, then what kind of incentive is there for me as a citizen, as a little old citizen? What kind of incentive is there for me to follow the law? I'm not suggesting you go out and break the law, but I will tell you this. Every single time I have been in a church, every single time I have been in a church, I have had a firearm on my side. At least after baptism.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
He's over.